I don't know. It's good. It'll be great. It just seems cheap and low budget. We are cheap and low budget. Yeah, but no one needs to know that. You don't think they know that already? It's just an introduction with me talking to me. Listen, we can't get anyone else on the show. No one's going to think this is clever. Good. Then it matches the rest of what we're doing here. Whoa! Ouch! Hey, it's equally my fault. I mean, your wife's videos. I mean, those are doing great. They're killing ours for views. All right, let's just start before I begin getting depressed. Rolling! Hello, and welcome back to the Denver Church of Christ weekly recap. It's great to have you here with us today. And on this day, I am representing my favorite soccer team, Liverpool. I'm in mourning over their season and just hoping that it will resume at some point this summer. Liverpool sits at the top of the league by about 25 points, 3 more games. We win the whole thing. It's been about 30 years. We need to pray that soccer resumes at some point when things get safe. In any case, it's been a great day. My son, Gus, got baptized today. The family celebrated. We had a lot of people come out to the Cherry Creek Reservoir. A lot of people, we zoomed it in. And I want to thank everybody who was involved, especially the youth and family ministry and the teens. We're all very happy about that. And it's been a wonderful week. I do need to address something because we've been getting letters. A lot of them, as a matter of fact. And it has to do with how long my hair is getting, and it's not looking good in some places. And listen, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't get a haircut right now. I dare not trust myself to it. I know Brian Campbell would love to cut my hair, and that's a definite negatron right there. And so in the meantime, we're all just going to have to deal with the way that it looks. So this last week, great week in church. We had a fantastic Sunday service. Quiet week. We didn't have anything hugely special going on except for our small groups and our midweeks and prayer groups. My wife had a prayer devotional with some of the moms in the church this morning as well. She's going to do that over a couple times. And so if your mom looking to get some time of prayer with some of the other moms, check out the next one. I think it's in a few weeks. And then today I've been thinking about how do we reach, evangelistically, contemporary people? I mean, the culture is always changing, and I begin to feel like some of the things that we do feel less and less effective as time goes on. And I don't know if that's a result of a diminishing faith or diminishing work, but I think it's probably a lot of things. But one of them is that culture is changing, and I would say, really, the last 50 or 60 years, every generation, every new generation is building upon the next one a particular characteristic that I think is making it difficult for something like the Bible and the church and religion in general to speak, in a way that's moving to the new generations and to every subsequent generation. And I think it has to do with the fact that the young people and new generations are becoming less and less tethered to history and to tradition and to the beliefs of their parents. It's become more of a rite of passage to reject all things that were considered or thought to be reliable, and to strike out on your own and find out what is actually reliable, and not to trust what authorities tell you is true, and not to trust what history tells you is true or what tradition tells you is true, but to find that truth for yourself. And honestly, there's a lot that is noble about that, because much of history is untrustworthy and much of tradition is untrustworthy. And believe it or not, many of the things that our parents tell us are not trustworthy. But there's a big leap between saying that some things are not trustworthy and all things from history are not trustworthy. And it seems like every new generation, the younger the generations are, the less they trust history and the less tethered they are to history. The result being is that they've got to find out truth more and more from themselves, which means you can't approach the subject of truth or the subject of meaning or the subject of purpose beginning with history, and nothing speaks to history maybe as much as this book right here. And so just simply trying to teach the Bible to somebody as the answers to all the woes in this world is a difficult place to begin for people who don't trust history, who inherently do not like the idea of putting faith into something that is traditional, something that is from the past. And so then how do you reach somebody who doesn't rely on history? And there's a book by Henry Nouwen called The Wounded Healer. And it's a lot of the book talks about the nuclear man, the new man. And, he was writing this in the early 80s, but things have only progressed since then. And how does a minister, how does someone of faith reach and connect with the new man, the nuclear man, who is so untethered from history? And I think one of the things that he says in there has really struck me this week is that they have to be able to articulate inner turmoil better than anybody else. They have to know inner turmoil, and they have to be able to express it in a way that other people recognize. And I think what often happens is, and I know for me, sometimes when I listen to someone else's inner turmoil, I am tempted at times to roll my eyes. I am tempted at times to think that they are entitled or they're spoiled, or this is my judgmental Generation X self coming out right here. But I think what I have to do, and what many of us have to do, if we're going to reach those of these younger generations, and just honestly my generation and down, if we're going to reach that generation, we're going to have to be able to articulate kind of the inner struggle that people have who are untethered from tradition. And this got me thinking about, how did Jesus do this? And obviously, we're comparing apples to oranges when we're talking about culture of ancient Middle Eastern culture and modern day American culture. And yet the human condition is eternal in many ways. And, Jesus was speaking oftentimes to generations that did not trust religious leaders and did not trust the way religious leaders taught religious history. And Jesus had to approach this differently. When you see the Sermon on the Mount, I think what's interesting is this isn't just a sermon about law, even though so much of what he is talking about is extrapolated from the Old Testament law. But what he's doing is he's taking the Old Testament law and he's helping people to internalize it. He's almost saying, okay, this is what the law said. He says it over and over again. You've heard it say. You've heard it say this. You've heard it say this. And not that he's critical of the law, but he's saying this is what you've always heard. This is probably what you've grown desensitized to. So let me put this in a way that makes more sense to you. So instead of saying, hey, simply you've heard it say, do not murder, what he says is that it's not just about the act of murder or that act of violence. There is an internal turmoil. There is an internal violence that you also have to deal with. And I believe that when people hear that, they go, man, that is common to all people. That I'm not a murderer. I don't want to kill people, but I definitely deal with internal rage or internal strife. And so Jesus is now talking to that internal turmoil. And he does that throughout the Sermon on the Mount. And I think this is what we have to get good at in our own day and age, is that we have to be able to articulate these internal storms that people are dealing with. And I'm not saying we abandon the Bible. We can't, but we somehow have to be able to articulate that internal storm and then show how tradition, how history, and how the Bible can minister to that. But I think before we get to that step, we have to be able to show that we understand, that we see, that we also have dealt with these internal storms. And so that was some of what I was thinking about this week, and how we go about doing that. I'm not sure. I think we have to sit and think more. And I think we have to be careful not to disregard too quickly the protestations, the angst, you know, the kind of what sometimes comes across as juvenile rage of each of the generations. We have to sit and go, okay, it makes sense that they feel this when they do not trust history. They don't have they don't have a story to rely upon to get them through these parts because they don't trust any of that. So they honestly are pioneers trying to find this truth for themselves. I don't want to get too out there right now, but I'm saying that's what I've been thinking about this week. I really do think Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount speaks to some of this. And so in any case, let's come up with ideas. Let's think about how we do a better job of articulating the things that people who are so untethered to history and tradition, how we articulate their storms, because we feel them too, but we get through them faster because we have a history that we rely on. We have patterns that give us comfort. And when you don't have that history and you don't have those patterns, you don't have that comfort. And so that's what I think we have to start doing as a church. Let's start articulating those inner storms. Now, we have a great service tomorrow. I want to talk about something that we're going to do the week after. Of course, the week after is Mother's Day. Moms, we love you. We need you. And we're going to honor you. And the title of the Mother's Day sermon is The Giver. Now, of course, we've started a new series in the Denver church for this month. It's called The Investors. And in this series, we're talking about the idea of using what we've been given and being awesome stewards over what God has given us so that we can help create a great legacy for ourselves, for our fellowship, for God's kingdom on earth, that we use what we've been given to build upon those things. And so that's what the whole series is about. But on Mother's Day, we have a sermon called The Giver, because honestly, in our lives, probably the person for most of us who's been the biggest giver on this planet has been our moms or some matronly figure in our lives. And so we want to honor that. But during that day also, we're going to take up a special hope contribution. Part of the way that this disease has affected many parts of the world is that it's shut down employment for so many people, obviously. Now, if you are a day wage worker where you every single day bring home enough food and bring home enough money to eat for that day, if you have to go 6 weeks without working, you know, it's not like your employers are gonna help you through that. And on top of that, you don't have a savings normally because you're a day wage. Every single day you're getting money to pay for food that day. And so many of our most impoverished churches have members that are just not even being able to eat. And so we're going to take up a special contribution for hope over the next couple weeks, starting on Mother's Day. And I want us to all think about that. And we're going to show a video where some of our church leaders in places like India and Asia and Mexico are going to talk a little bit about how this has been affecting the members, our brothers and sisters in churches far away from us. So I want us to be thinking about that as well. Other than that, you know, we still don't know what's going on with teen camp, and we don't know what's going on with the conference yet, but I believe we're going to get news for both of those very, very soon. Until then, hang in there. Give us a call if you need anything. Go to our website, I think that was 3 W's. Hopefully that wasn't 4. If it's 4, subtract 1. Just 3 W's. denverchurchofchrist.org. And go to the top. There's a blog section there, and we have all sorts of resources on there. Videos for those of us who are married, for campus students, for youth and family. We have content up there for everybody. That's good for everybody. So please go there if you're feeling a little stuck or you just want to connect a little bit with the church. We've got a lot of stuff there. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.